Hello everyone, it's Skull Connor, for the second part of this FX tutorial. I hope you have your coffee handy, because this video will be dense but should contain all that you have to know about these layers. We start with the important concepts to know when creating your applier. First of all, as a reminder, you would have access to 4 distinct layers: the eyes, the eyelids, the cheeks and the lips. For this, we have different Devkit containing specific UVs that I will quickly show you. One for the eyes. The lips. The cheeks. And for the eyelids. Each of this FX layers has grids already pre-configured. The choice of the grid depends exclusively on the style of animation you want to create. For a fluid and fast animation containing a lot of information, you will rather be on a large grid. Be careful, however, to choose the base resolution of the eye carefully, because the larger it is, the more resolution you lose for each of the thumbnails. To do your first tests, you will have to specify which one to choose, and you will have available additional modifiable meshes in the Devkit to work with local textures, for example. Second important point, the starting format. If I take the example of the cheeks here in this Devkit, you have the choice of working directly on a grid, but I advise you however to start your design on the main UV here. There has several advantages to this. You will have a starting base with a maximum resolution that you can adjust according to the final choice of your grid without risk of loss. Second important advantage is not directly related to the FX but to the fact that you can also convert your work to 2K BOM or Evo X using the actions we've created especially for you here. To explain you, I show you the concept behind the golden tears on Arwen head. Here we have a black 2K BOM texture done with the main cheek UV. This is a BOM tattoo. The universal export using the action provided for this purpose, and above which we have added an FX animation for the golden tears. The corresponding export action for this BOM tattoo can be found here: FX to 2K BOM right cheek. And using this method to maximize the quality of your creations and thus have more artistic freedom. Third important point concerns the symmetries. For now we have only worked on the right part of our FX. And in the case of a 25 grid, for example, mirroring each thumbnail would take a lot of time, and I can reassure you because we have prepared an action so that in one click the conversion is done automatically by choosing to launch the action corresponding to our grid choice here, Mirror Grid 25. Since we are dealing with actions features, I give you some tips and tricks because you will probably be faced with situations where things may not go as planned if an action is interrupted in the middle of processing, leaving your document unstable. You can open the history here at any time and click on the RoX snapshot here and revert your document to exactly the state it was in before you started the action. And if you run an action multiple times like this, you will have to confirm the creation request and snapshot replacement. It is safe and guarantees the stability of your document. Another important trick is about empty cells. If I take the example of the rogue head cyber eyes, when you create an FX you may have to create transparent cells. These transparencies will failed actions. Unfortunately we don't currently have other solution than to offer you the one that consists of manually adding a visual mark in cells like this. Here, there and there. Then let the mirroring action export the texture with these marks. You will have to reopen it to erase these markers manually. It is not a too restrictive operation. much less in any case than having to do the symmetry of all the cells yourself, and if necessary you can also create your own actions and modify those that we have created for you to possibly automate the process at your convenience. After this comment on the actions, back to the heart of the matter where we will detail point by point all the parameters of our FX which will be used to configure the command line of our applier. For the record, the universal command line is here. And therefore, simply takes all the parameters of the table with for the FX column all the values that are used except the last line. And in the case of the lips, this parameter here which is also not authorized. Understand this. The command line must always contain all the parameters, but if they are not authorized as indicated in the table, you must write a lowercase x in place of the parameter. You will find several examples in this documentation concerning the FX, but also for all the other layers such as the HD, the extras or the BOM part. Concerning the other columns of this table, for each parameter you have the kind of value that is expected, the range of values and the comment that tells you what it corresponds to. If I start with the first parameter which corresponds to the left-right part or both at the same time, for example in the case of the eyes, we can make an applier for only one eye if we wish. Grid size and max cells are the parameters which are explained here and which correspond to the size of our grid, the one we must choose when we create our applier, as so we can specify a number of cells to use which is potentially less than the size of the grid. We are not constrained to use all the cells of the grid to make our animation. Fourth, parameters. The textures that we saw in the first video and which is also explained here with some additional informations, especially concerning FX layers which only manage the diffuse channel contrary to the HD layers, extra and BOM parts which can handle materials and more. The Fulbright in SL that you know is the auto illumination, max glow, mask mode and transparency cutoff. These values are the blending and masking in SL with different opacities. These are parameters specific to SL that you probably already know. Image speed is an important parameter because it corresponds to the frame rate of our animation. The cycle mode parameter is interesting since it will allow you to choose to play your animation in the classic direction or in the opposite direction. We start from the end to the beginning or here in the wave direction where we read it in a first direction and then we read in reverse. Transparency mode, tint mode and glow mode are complementary effects that have been superimposed or added to your main animation and are managed by the speed effect which is also a slider. In the case of transparency mode we can for example choose if we want an animation which appears and disappears at a certain rate or apply in the case of the number 2 here a random transparency value. Tint mode, we can choose an automatic color gradient or optionally apply random colors. Glow mode, which works in pulse or random mode and which is attached to the max glow parameter here that we have marked, to say that according to the maximum value of the glow that we authorize here, our glow mode will take into account this value there and will not exceed the value indicated by the max glow. The effect speed is the rate of these complementary animations which are superimposed, and you will therefore have understood that you will be able to have two different speeds, one for the animation itself and another for the secondary effects applied above, which will allow users to have a lot of choices and even them, thanks to the HUD, will also be able to manage everything they want. The frame mode parameter is specific and always works with the image speed. In classic animation mode, you play your animation with the value you have chosen at the speed frame level. In fix image mode, We are going to use the slider of the image speed to set on which thumbnail we want to stop the image. In this case, for example, we can well set to stop visually on this small thumbnail, to display and not move. This is an option that is available to the user as well. For example, this mode in Fix Image can define a texture with a whole series of smileys in the eyes, and the user can choose which one he wants to display at a time. And finally, the last parameter here, which is not currently defined and which will be used for a possible evolution of our applier. You will find in the FX section here some concrete examples for eyes, eyelids or lips that will help you better understand how to create your command line. Do not hesitate to do as many tests as possible before completely launching into the realization of your FX applier. As I have already specified, the grid choice is very important, the animation speed too, and the final resolution of your animation will be important on all the choices that you go do. So, we have covered all the useful parameters for our FX. You can also browse the documentation, which contains some concrete examples and other secondary details. One of them concerns the multi-applier in case you want to create a HUD containing several choices. In this case, you will have to put the universal script Rebirth RoX head applier in each mesh or SL prim and configure them one by one. Take care to read the channel in which you are asked to write the command line, which may vary. Last tips concern the reset. If you have to reset an applier to adjust your command line, for example, I advise you to do a long press on the concerned prim and wait for the message which informs you that you can reconfigure your applier again. This tutorial is ending. You should now see more clearly and already have creative ideas that come to mind. Don't forget that for any assistance I can be reached in World or on Discord, and whether it's for technical problems, implementation assistance or a change request, for example. If necessary, don't hesitate to watch the other tutorials for HD layers or 2K BOM. Anyway, I can't wait to see your achievements for FX, and until then I wish you a good day. See you soon on SL.